weather is so unpredictable, you never know what the heck is going to happen. So you can never be overly prepared. You know, today with technology, we have technology in the palm of our hand to be able to give us real-time information. And I think it's really important that we find out what services are out there, what type of ways that we can get a little bit advance on any inclement weather coming our way, what it exists of. I remember back in the day before we had smartphones, you would just look in the sky and be like, oh, that doesn't look too good. The sky's kind of gray over there, and something bad could be heading this way, and you kind of cross your fingers. But those days are kind of gone because of smartphones and technology, and there are different ways that we can analyze the weather and have information at our fingertips to let us make some decisions, especially quick decisions. Because when tough weather comes your way, you have to have time on your side in order to prepare for that. So I'd like to invite up our speakers to come on and speak. Yeah, I remember you. So we have Jason Anderson, Steve Francine, Andy Loddington. Jason's from True Weather Solutions, and he's going to talk about what he does. But this whole segment is upon being prepared in weather forecasting. Steve Francine, not only does he own a production company, but he is a pilot, and he does a lot of flying. So having knowledge of the weather is very important for a pilot, being able to assess this situation and being able to read the I'm not sure how you go about it, but I know you can make a phone call and find out what the weather is. Pilots do that often.
Right, yeah, I'll get to that.
Yeah, for sure. But just want to give you some background. To be a pilot, you got to know what's happening in the air before you go and take off. And then we have Andy. He's from England. He has his own hire company, has about eight units in his rental inventory, and he's going to be talking about his anemometer. And he has a great solution using a smartphone and different attachments to attach to the stages. So, all right, guys, take it over.
Great. Mike just asked a question about who had a high wind event on their stages. Can I see those hands again? Okay, that's pretty much everybody. How many of you are meteorologists? I'm imagining, short of him, it's none of you, right? I'm not even a meteorologist. I have been studying weather since I was a kid. I implement it in my recreational flying that I do a lot, and I'm going to skip over some of the sciencey stuff. I'll let maybe him talk about that. I have a lot of hands-on experience, and when you're in those high wind sort of events with your stages on your event site, you have people who are sometimes looking to you to know what your stage is capable of doing, withstanding, what the weather may do. Do you call this event for the time being or not? I'm going to share with you guys some of the tools that I use and some of the tools that I would recommend you don't use, or at least understand, to help make more educated decisions on that. We'll talk about the benefit of hiring a professional meteorologist for your event, and we'll talk about some tools that you can employ that will help you make better decisions on site. Some of those are software based, some of those are hardware based, and so on. And so basically a little bit about me. If you guys recall from the talk yesterday, I have been in this industry about 10 years, probably around 12, something like that. I have at least 500 events under my belt. Nobody really knows, but we've been hitting this hard and heavy for a while now, so we feel that's a pretty good number. Like I said, I'm a pilot. I'm a licensed contractor in the city of Denver. The city of Denver makes you get a contractor license, much like a roofer or something like that, so you can pull building permits for your stages. Anybody else have to do that, by the way? Raise a hand. Anybody have to pull pull building permits? Wow, it's a lot of work, and big pain in the butt. Anyway, this picture of my airplane. It's a pretty cool, unique little airplane. I maintain that. I fly it. Skinny and I have flown to meetings in it. It's a lot of fun, kicking the pants for sure. This is a stage that I designed and built. That's about 6 years old now. Has about probably approaching 200 shows on it now. Have wind load certs, high wind action plan for it, live load certs, all most of the pertinent stuff to it. It's been great. Another picture from Marshall Austin that I have. The stage I designed and built, we designed that all in CAD, so there's a little screenshot of some of the stuff we did there. I own Mountain West Production Group, doing about 300 events a year, so high volume for what we do. There we go. Okay. So again, we're going to just kind of go through a little bit about the fundamentals of what most forecasts will show you. That information you pull up on your smartphone where it says, oh, it's going to be sunny in 15 minutes. It looks like there's a thunderstorm right there, but my iPhone says different, right? We're going to talk about that just a little bit. I'm going to show you kind of what you can just visually, by looking at a storm coming your way, some things to look for and just be aware of. And then we're going to talk about the tools and stuff that we can use. Again, here's why we do this. There's a whole bunch of twisted metal there. That's mine. We'll talk about kind of what happened in that situation, but we all want to be as safe as possible. If any one of us has a stage end up on TV or national news, it's going to be bad for everyone else. So we all want to be as safe as possible in doing this. Who knows the high wind action plan for their specific stage? Who has it memorized? Anyone? Yeah, good. Does anybody who practices it with their crew? Anybody? Nope. It's all something we should be doing. This is something. When my stage broke this year on a high wind event, we enacted the high wind action plan. I shared my experience with Mike, and it sounds like it's a pretty rare thing to have happen. Who's actually enacted their high wind action plan on the event side? 2, 3? Okay, all right. Who's gotten pushback from their client, or who's had their client be upset? Right? Okay, yeah, so everybody who's enacted the high wind action plan has had a pissed off client, it seems like. Yeah. Ish?
I actually added to my contracted estimate, telling them that I reserve the right at 30 miles an hour of steady wind on notice, 35 miles an hour when they release the real control, 40 miles and above where it immediately shut down the show until it passes.
Good call.
Otherwise, you get conflict. You listen, you signed it, I'm shutting it down, I'm not waiting. The incident in Sugarland happened because the promoter used the heat in the mornings for the state troopers, saying that there's a squall coming through. All the other vendors backed down the hatches, they continued the show, plus 11 people are no longer here with us.
Right. Good. I had to enact a high wind action plan, shut down a show, well, twice now. The first time I lost a client, Diane Moody. The second time I gained a client for life. We demonstrated to them that we know what we're doing. There's a reason that they hire us, because we know how to keep them safe, how to keep their event safe. This is something that you all should be using as a sales technique. You guys should know this. Tell your clients you drill it. Let them have confidence in you, in your ability to handle your stage in an inclement weather event. Tell them about, hey, we talk about this at conferences. We at least have a basic working knowledge of what to do. Next slide. Who uses an anemometer on the event site? Okay, cool. Yeah, you, I hope. I'll let you speak, but if you don't use an anemometer, they're cheap, relatively speaking, much cheaper to broken stage, and it's a basic tool that you have to rely upon. For a long time, I used an app, which I'll show you here in a little while, that gets weather data from nearby airports, and I just picked the nearest airport. We're going to talk about why that's not such a great idea, and having the retrospect that I do. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. I just had a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Chat about your anemometer.
Okay, cool. So yeah, Andy, my name's Andy Longington from England, and I'm also the UK agent for Stage Mobile Stages. When I started in the stage business, I realised that nobody was doing anything about anemometers. In England, hardly any of the other users were using them. And then when I looked to try and buy something, there wasn't anything available. The stage manufacturers, they don't seem to make the necessary kind of pieces to actually fit anemometers to the stage simply. Is there a reason for that?
I'd like to
Okay. So I came up with something. I came up with something that was easy for us to use, easy for us to fit to the stage mobile stages, and it can be adapted really to fit any stage. This is the mounting bracket. It's got a 50mm clamp on there, 2-inch clamp, so it can fit to any of the tubes. You can remove that clamp so that it can then easily be fitted to the stage mobile truss, which is a standard kind of global truss, and it literally just clips in the end, drop a pin in, that's it, it's there.
Everyone is clear what an anemometer does, right? Is anybody clear on that? All right. Yeah, everybody's looking at it. Okay, good. Go ahead.
Okay, so the anemometer then is here in the box. So this particular one is it's a kind of 3-piece unit. Yeah, very good. And it's a wireless, so there's no wires. It connects via Bluetooth to any phone or mobile device, smart device, or iPhone or something like that. It's a standard speaker speaker stand top that then screws to.
This appears to be the European style microphone stand clip port right there.
It's not.
Oh, okay.
Way off. So how does this? How do people get the information from this to themselves?
So it links, as I said, you download an app onto your device, and then that links via Bluetooth to your device, and gives you a reading, a real-time reading with an alarm setting. I think my device obviously is going to be already connected to it. See,
What do these things cost roughly?
to get these into the USA is probably going to be $575. I would have thought thereabouts. So I haven't sold any in the USA, so I don't know exactly. It's probably going to be that plus tax. I would have thought.
Lot cheaper than the repairs I'm working on right now.
Yeah,
So-
cool. Yeah. It's got a 100-meter range, so that is going to be obviously on the top of your stage, and then you're going to be monitoring it from front of house or any other position on the site. More than one person can connect to it. There's no limit to it, so we're not just relying on the one guy to be monitoring it. It can be any number. It can be 10 people if you like. And then certainly in Europe, in the UK, we have certain kind of rules that the event organisers have to adhere to. They have to prove that they've been monitoring the wind, and what a lot of people do is they take a snap, like a screenshot of that at a given time, and then log it, via email or whatever. So then through the day they can prove that they've been monitoring the wind speed.
So you'll see here in a minute the forecast that you get on your iPhone and what is actually happening on your event site can be very different for a number of reasons. Let's just go to the next slide. I kind of forgot how I put this together, to be honest. No, do you have the clicker? Alright. We'll deal with it. Most forecasts are put together based on high pressure air flowing to areas of low pressure air. For the purposes of this discussion, we'll call those non-convective. That's basically it's winds that happen absent of thunderstorms, tornadoes, tropical cyclones, things of that nature.
Steve, I'll help you out here. So we call that scientifically the pressure gradient force. So you have a high, you have a low, there's a force between the two things, that creates wind, so there's no storms.
So a lot of the times your Google forecast is just going off of that kind of data. So, yeah, that's fine. So sometimes if you're near, we don't deal with this in Colorado much, but like if you're near an ocean, there can be certain coastal breezes that set up daily where it's really common that the wind is coming off of the ocean or going out to the ocean or something like that, depending on your time of day. That can be a very, very common thing. So that forecast that you get from Google or Yahoo or whatever may and typically does take into account some local factors. So they're somewhat easy to predict. You can put in some data to some weather models, and you can get a prediction back out of it, and they're somewhat reliable. So, anybody seen a map that looks like this before? Okay, so these are called isobars. It's basically just lines of pressure, and we're talking about areas of low pressure and areas of higher pressure, and basically wind flows perpendicular to those. So this just speaks to, it's this sort of data which is how a lot of those forecasts end up getting made. So again, this is, if you can see this is a diagram of some coastal sea breezes. There's some mountain topography, and I'm happy to send this out to anybody who wants to take a closer look. I'm not sure if you can see that in the back, but basically this speaks to some of the local conditions that get plugged into the larger picture developed by those isobar models to give you your Google forecast. So it's typically not those kind of winds. The type of winds that you get from an isobar forecast or coastal breeze sort of forecasts are not the things that we really that keep us up at night as stage owners. So what we're typically concerned about are the high winds associated with thunderstorms, microbursts, gust fronts, things of that nature, right? So now we're going to talk a little bit about what these are. For the purposes of this discussion, we're going to call these convective winds because they're associated with the building or dying of thunderstorms. These can get very, very highly localized. So if there's a thunderstorm that's building a mile that way, it can actually suck air from the area around it. So the wind that's forecast to be to the east gently may be flowing back to the west because it's going into that thunderstorm. Yep. So go back one. So convective winds, the forecasters can come up typically with, and I'm using this as a general statement. They can typically come up with a probability of thunderstorms. So we're going to say there's a likelihood of this, that the thunderstorm is going to happen, right? But you don't know exactly where it's going to pop up. And because of where this storm happens to pop up, it may be 10 miles that way, 10 miles that way, or right here, these localized winds get changed because these storms bring in so much energy. So basically, the way that these thunderstorms start is ground heats. That causes the air to warm up. Destabilize. The air rises and pulls a lot of energy with it. You can see it's sucking wind up with it. At a certain point, it's going to get so tall that the vapor condenses. I mean, this is basic elementary science stuff, but the next slide is where things start getting kind of dangerous. So anyway, before we get in, I guess it's not this slide, but basically, there's the forecast you're likely to get is put together using a very wide picture view, and there's very highly localized forces that can affect that, the actual reality of what you're seeing on your event site in a very different way. So Mike, very smart guy, said this. Microbursts and gust fronts are two of the most dangerous things I think you're going to find. They're extremely powerful. Who's ever been through one? Who has a good understanding as to what they are? Okay, good. Yeah, especially if you live in the Midwest. There's a lot of convective activity out there. It's very dry, and because of that, the cloud, they're a little easier to predict.
More specifically, I live in Johnville, Missouri. Everybody remembers 2011. We got wiped off the face.
Yeah, you've seen that. There are a lot of hands down, so we'll probably keep talking about this. So basically, what happens is, especially these rapidly growing thunderstorms, you get a lot of energy coming up into the cloud. It condenses, the water vapor condenses either into rain or hail, and quickly falls out the bottom of that cloud. When that comes back down, it hits the ground, it turns into these vortexes. There's the highest measured microburst, the highest wind speed measured by a microburst was at an airport in the northern Midwest somewhere, 154 miles an hour. I don't care what the wind load rating is on your stage, you're going to have a bad day. So the thing that I would like to just make sure you guys do when it comes to the possibility of a microburst is prepare early, cut loose your backdrops, cut loose your sidewalls. This is not the sort of thing you can see coming easily. So next slide. Basically, there's 3 stages of a microburst. They can happen with or without rain, which is kind of an interesting thing to some people. Anybody ever seen Virga coming down at the bottom of the cloud? It evaporates before it hits the ground. You can still have an extremely powerful microburst in those sort of conditions. So just because you don't see a lot of water actually hitting the ground from an approaching storm does not mean you're in the clear at all. It can happen with or without rain. The downburst is the portion of the microburst where it comes down out of the cloud. The outburst is basically where it hits the ground and goes out, and then the cushion stage is where it continues to roll out. It dissipates a lot of energy the further out it goes. So ideally you don't get a direct hit. The weather models say that the highest speed wind could get in the worst case microburst is up to 170 miles an hour. Extremely powerful. And there's also something called a macroburst, which is basically anything over 4 square kilometers. A microburst that's larger than that is termed a macroburst. And those happen with larger, more mature, typically thunderstorms. So if you see a storm that's been going along for a long time, not a whole lot coming out of it, but it's building and building and building, looking real nasty, but you still don't see any rain and it's getting right close to you, chances are it's going to let go real quick. And it's that type of information that you guys definitely should remember and make note of. Actually, next one.
But they're not always associated with dark skies.
They're almost always, I mean, they're pretty much always associated with some sort of thunderstorm.
I've had one happen on a day like this.
I'll let him speak to this.
So my guess, not knowing the situation of where you were at, you could have been downwind of one of these things. Maybe there was a cell that was developing a loft, but it never reached down to that lower level. Like Steve said with Berga, sometimes there can be very dry air at the surface, allowing for no rain hitting you, even though it looks, very dark aloft. That could be one of the reasons that occurred. Like, you had the wind, but you didn't have the rain.
So, thank you. So microbursts can come down at about 60 miles an hour, and so if you have about 1,000-foot cloud base or so, you can imagine driving in a car how long it's going to take you to go 1,000 feet. If you can look up at the cloud and say, oh, there's suddenly a bunch of rain coming out of this cloud base, that looks a lot like a microburst happening. You have just seconds to prepare. So if your high wind action plan takes 5 minutes to implement, it's too late. And you better just hope. Anyway. So, of course, this was going to make its way into the presentation at some point. Everybody knows what stage that is, I'm sure, Indiana State Fair. This is a radar cross-section of a thunderstorm, very, very powerful thunderstorm, with the main core of the thunderstorm, the anvil that's extending downwind quite a bit. And what you have here is a lot of precipitation that's hit the ground and is outflowing, forming a gust front. The thing that lets you on the event site see this coming, or one of the things that lets you see this coming, primarily is going to be what's called a roll cloud, that sometimes develops with this. Those are, some people call them like horizontal tornadoes. And it's basically just a line of clouds. It's typically rolling backwards as it progresses downwind. Very strange looking, eerie looking thing. But if you see one of those coming, know that it's going to get very windy. Got a lot of glare. The leading edge, so basically just the definition is right off Google, gust front leading edge of cool air rushing downward and outward of a thunderstorm. Again, there's another, this is a picture out of my basic ground school manual. So you can imagine that airplanes flying through that suddenly encounter a whole lot of air coming behind them. And that decreases their overall airspeed. It can be a very dangerous thing. It's another picture of a gust front coming. That isn't quite a roll cloud, but if you take a look at this, you can see a very defined line of clouds moving outward. Next one. So basically, gust front is a lot like a microburst, but on a little bit bigger scale. Typically has to do with a little bit larger, more mature storm. The winds associated with them are much more widespread, but a little less powerful in their max strength. They basically, if you have wind blowing one way, and it is, say you have wind blowing into the storm, and you should be ready to expect a very rapid change in direction and intensity of wind when that gust front hits you. So one of the things, we're kind of getting into tools here. So this is actually a radar signature that I got on my smartphone. This is a screenshot. We were setting up a stage right here. And I saw a thunderstorm off in the distance, and I just figured, yeah, I'll go ahead and check this neat little app that I have, right? There's a way you can set this app up to be far more sensitive than most radars are going to show you. And you can actually see, this is two things. One, it's a change in temperature, but another thing is it's a lot of bugs and dirt, stuff like that gets picked up by the gust front, and the leading edge of the gust front actually shows on radar, so you can see it coming. So like I said, we were right about there. We're building a stage. We're just about to put the roof up. I happened to check this, and I was like, oh, we should probably hold off for a minute. This Denver International Airport is right there, right under it, and this is a screenshot of the winds. This is in knots when that went through. So it went from about a 4 mile an hour wind to a just under 40 mile an hour wind, just like that. So if I'm sure everybody's stage is a little different, but this, you know, if we're trying to get a stage roof up and we get a 40-mile-an-hour wind, that's a problem. Oh, and sorry, back to that 1 second. There was no roll cloud. There was no indication that anything was coming other than I just happened to see a thunderstorm off in the distance that looked like it had been dying, and I kind of said, hey, you know, worth checking out. So tools, anemometer, important. Definitely get one if you don't have it. But this app that I mentioned that I got that screenshot from is called a radar scope, and it taps into the NOAA weather radars, and it can get a lot more sensitive than most of your AccuWeather sort of apps like that. Because of that, go ahead.
Not being a meteorologist, we can go back one slide. At my office, I have the Doppler. My app on the phone isn't quite, but could you explain a little bit, maybe more to you, the reflectivity and the different tilts? Because I know when you get a Doppler image, you can get whatever the client wants. You can show a clear thing, and you can show health. What's the best thing for more of the surface winds that we worry about with the state system? What tilt or what?
So, Radar Scope, I'll say, is really the leading weather radar app out there. It's better than anything you're going to get from any TV weather, Joe Blow weather app you can find. There's a lot of different tools on there. Real 30-second learning about radar. The further you are from a radar site, due to the curvature of the earth and the power of that beam, it weakens. It's going to start losing definition. It's going to start getting over the surface. So if you're, say, 150, 200 miles away from the radar site, it's going to miss a lot of things in the first maybe 1,000, 2,000 feet of the atmosphere. So if you got radar scope, I highly recommend using what they call Tilt 1. That's about as close to the surface as they can get. Now, Tilt 2, 3, and 4 will give you a better idea of what's going on aloft. That could be useful if you want to know, is anything developing? Is there a thunderstorm starting to form? And again, though, do you guys want to learn all that detail?
By tilt, he's talking about as the radar swings around and scans the environment, we're talking about how high up the tilt of the radar is. So you got to imagine tilt 1 real low,
yeah.
Right?
Tilt is as close to the ground as they can get.
Tilt 2 a little higher, and so on and so forth.
Steve, can I address the anemometer thing just real quick?
Yeah, sure. No.
First of all, it's a brilliant product, and I just want to, from a manufacturer's standpoint, and forgive me, I'm trying to learn here. We put within the guidelines or instructions of our stage to all of our customers that they must have an anemometer.
Right.
Well, the customer then has the privilege to say to me, well, why don't you just provide it standard with the stage? In other words, if you're going to make us get one, why don't you just put the argument against that? And what I'd really like to hear from the stage owners here, Apex and otherwise, is, and I don't know what my competitors do. My competitors may provide an anemometer standard with the base price of the stage. I don't know. But as far as Apex is concerned, we provide it as an option, primarily because there are stage customers who want to buy their own one. They like a specific one rather than one we would mandate that comes with the stage. We offer an anemometer with an attachment, similar to this gentleman's. I would encourage anyone to purchase this gentleman's. We offer one as an option. It's basically one of our banner arms. You can put the thing in. And we offer it as about a $350 option. But to say I'm going to mandate the anemometer that you're going to get with your stage, how many stage owners here would rather say, you know what, just avoid me the hassle and mandate which one I have, but how many would say, no, I want to choose my own? How many would like to choose their own? How many would say, just put it on the base price of the stage? So that's when you said, well, I wonder what the manufacturer's thoughts processes are there. Agreed. There should be one on every stage, but should I just make it a standard feature on my stage, or should I make it an option?
I would say that, you know, when we're talking about whether that's 450,000 or always make it an option, but like, what kind of moron's not going to $300 or whatever, $350 on a $60,000
right.
thing?
But for instance, this customer, Thomas Mitchell, he has a very sophisticated, expensive anemometer because he chose.
Right.
Mine is similar to his. It's an app. It's the thing. It's about $300. It does what it needs to do. But some guys, perhaps we want something more sophisticated.
But
Am I overthinking
I think
this?
that's a second conversation with every client, right?
doesn't that throw some liability on you if the amp monitor happens to be not accurate?
So in other words, I'm sorry, I'm not smart enough to understand your point. Make it an option because then I.
Well, you as a manufacturer, I'm wondering if you want the liability of providing an instrument that you can't guarantee the accuracy.
Well, we would only provide it if we could guarantee it. I mean, we would we vetted out this product and it's
By making it an option, it was also educating that first-time stage owner. Hey, this is something the factory is saying you should have.
And for insurance now, the carrier asks whenever I send it in, what kind of weather monitoring did it use? If I tell them none, it's probably going to be a problem. So you pretty much have to have one for insurance.
But earlier, I think one of what he was kind of going at too with its setup is as far as all the stations having a dedicated spot with options for mounting.
Okay, and
I think
that's
kind of
another
what he was
issue.
saying too.
This gentleman's device, if I'm not mistaken, hooks to truss. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
So on this stage, and again, I'm not trying to be sinister here, so please take it with the spirit with which it's intended. You have to put it somewhere downstage, as opposed to upstage and out of the way where nobody can see it. There might be people that say, I don't want that thing in view of the audience. I want it backstage, so mandating where it gets put on stage also comes in. I'm going to hear about that.
Right.
Yeah, this can go downstage. It has the option on those stages.
So I have a question about the height of it. How much does the roof skin affect the reading? Be real close to it or be further away?
The question was how much does the roof skin affect the reading?
So my understanding is that you need to be at least a meter over the roof
That's
of
good to
the
know, because I didn't put mine just to,
And probably my point is,
at the highest point. Exactly.
Yeah.
I've heard 4 feet, but I've also heard recommendations for the rear because usually in front you have your strings and things that are going to be affected, where on the back it's more unstructured.
Yeah, I would suggest even a meter over the screen.
If I remember correctly, the Stage Mobile High Wind Action Plan states that it should be several tens of meters away from the stage at a specified height, I believe of 3 meters. And it also specifies that you need to take into account local topography. And in fact, my last slide will, which we're getting to shortly, will show you guys if you just shut up for a minute. Totally kidding. No, actually, go back. Okay, so yes, we talked about radar tilts. Just know that app that I showed you is great for looking at things like an approaching gust front. It can be set in such a way that it's difficult to read the intensity of the storm. So like, your AccuWeather app or whatever is going to show you, it's going to probably be better for determining the intensity of the storm because you are calibrating this radar scope, at least I do, to look for much more sensitive things. So the really powerful thunderstorms they just don't show up right, basically.
What Steve's also saying is in the standard AccuWeather or WeatherEver app, if you use a composite radar, it gets all that little filter stuff out so you don't see those little details. Radar scope allows you to see that, but you need to be able to understand, is that a flock of birds, is that a dust, is that a gust front? That's where you need to understand what you're doing.
Butterflies.
It's nothing but butterflies. You
Yeah,
got a microburst of butterflies coming at you.
It's still make a mess.
Okay, I'll just get to a couple of the points. I mentioned earlier that I still use the weather data from all the regional airports, which is a very helpful thing. Especially in Colorado, we have really localized weather phenomenon that can move from area to area, and if we by using this app, the forecast may be for 15-mile-an-hour winds, but if I see that on this side of town they just had a 45, 50-mile-an-hour gust. On that side of town, they just had a 30-mile-an-hour gust. It's totally clear where I am. Even though it looks like a totally clear, calm day, you know that the atmosphere has the possibility of producing those sorts of things. So it allows you to take a look at weather that is in geographically similar but not identical areas to where you are. So that's Avio Weather, and just search nearest. Yeah, fish.
I use NOAA.
Yeah, NOAA.
I'm here in Florida. They picked up on wind and wave heights from the buoys. It's pretty accurate.
I think the point is, if this is something, if you're going to be a responsible stage owner, you just have to start paying attention, or hire somebody like Mr. Anderson here. And it just depends on how much you want to dig into it on a personal level. I'm just going to get through a couple more points, and then I'll just turn it over to you, and you finish it up. So anyway, Avia Weather, great for determining what the possibility of weather is in your area. And then the last point I want to touch on is something called HRRR, H-R-R-R, High Resolution Rapid Refresh. This is an experimental weather model. Again, they put in data so they can get data back out. Right now, there's not a great app that I'm aware of. Hopefully, something comes up because it's an incredibly powerful tool. So right now, it's only available on the website, which just means you got to click a little more. Not a big deal. Just search that. Take a picture of this. Anybody who's interested. What? Yeah. Sure. Oh, cool. Just gonna send out the PowerPoints. There's this thing down here. It says aviation fields, hourly and sub-hourly. So hourly is obviously on the hour sort of forecast. Sub-hourly is down to 15-minute increments. So you can get forecasts that are down to the 15-minute increment. You can select the region. In particular, I'm going to show you an image here in a second. It's just Colorado, but you can select. Colorado happens to be its own region on here, but you can select. Southwest United States, Northeast, whatever. Select your region. You can get. This is the most recent forecasted model, and then these are all predictions, and they're in 15-minute increments. The biggest thing here that I think everyone should pay attention to. This is a 10-meter wind forecast. So what that means is you're getting the wind forecast for 30 feet, roughly, right about where the height of that stage roof is. So you're getting a forecast, not for what the wind's doing right here, you're getting a forecast what the wind's doing right there, and it's very highly specific. This takes into account the real world data that's happening. So as these weather phenomena develop and roll through, it is fast enough of a model to where it can give you accurate forecasting, or at least much more accurate than your AccuWeather app. And I'm sure he has a lot more to talk about. Next slide. So this was something I took. This is a screenshot of what's happening in Colorado. You can see that the intensity is down here on the bottom, but basically what this is a pretty calm day. But this is basically saying that at 30 feet, we got right there, we got about a 20 knot wind speed. Some over here in Colorado, we're up to about 35 or 40. That's 10 meters up. Now, again, the anemometers on the ground may be giving you a different reading. This is just a little bit higher up. Definitely something everybody should know. And I think that's. Oh, I'll let Jason talk. I'm sorry. We'll let you talk, and then I'll come back to my last slide. Okay.
Everybody. Steve, you did all the hard work for me, really. I mean, I usually try not to go into all that detail, but that was fantastic. And that's how I do my job a lot of the time, actually. So, quick question before we get going. First of all, thank you all for having me here. I am Jason Ryan Anderson. I am the lead forecaster for True Weather Solutions. We're based up in Albany, New York. Ex-Air Force men, battle-hardened forecasting across the world. Every mission we do is no fail. I've been involved in live events for about 6 years now. Mike and I somehow connected over Facebook a few years ago. He was kind enough to invite me. So Mike, thank you for having me. I've worked with everybody from Paul McCartney last year down to smaller regional festivals to even a town festival for just say Norman, Oklahoma. So every event is different. Every event needs weather. I've heard a lot of you that I've talked to today tell me, Jason, I understand that I need this, but I can't afford this. I'm not tens of thousands of dollars, you know. I am an insurance policy. I'm here to make sure you guys are safe, you don't lose your assets. So I'll take you through my presentation real quick. This is unfortunately Indiana State Fair 2011. I hope this wasn't your stage. Long story, Fish, I think you know this story really well, but this event had been expected pretty regularly for about 3-4 days out. National Weather Service did their job. They issued a thunderstorm alert at about 8:30. This happened at 8:46. The way the official report says is that they decided to start working on their high wind action plan, developing it at about 8:38. They should have been enacting a plan then and there. They were arguing between the promoter, stage owner, the organizer of the state, and also the band that was about to go on stage, what was going on. Long story short, they took too long. 11 people lost their lives, multiple injuries. Last count I knew, about $50 million in litigation and still being fought out. Don't let this happen to you folks, please. Please, please, please. Whoop. All right, so about true weather, I went through this real quick already. I'll just tell you, we forecasted all over the world, managed Air Force bases, building the Afghan army, fighting the Iraq war. We do airports, roads, South by Southwest Festival. We've done Paul McCartney the last 2 years. We've done college commencements. I've worked with presidential inaugurations 2 times now. Everything we do is a no-fail mission. It's about your lives, it's about your workers, it's about your businesses. There's no reason you guys shouldn't be aware of the weather and know how to react and plan on it. And at True Weather, we're educated, we're trained, we're industry experienced forecasters. You guys probably don't. Show of hands real quick. How many here wants to be a meteorologist after Steve's talk? Oh, this is great science, guys. You'll love it.
Thanks, guys.
Let me tell you, I went into meteorology for the money, folks, okay?
I thought it was the glamour.
Oh, yes, I've been in the sub-basement for 2 years. This is the first time they've let me out of the office. I'm not going to bore you with our company real quick. I'll just tell you. The reason we're different than the AccuWeathers of the world, you know, Joe Blow's weather app, we're agile and innovative. We don't do things the old standards. I'm not going to hype you about the weather. I'm not going to name Winter Storm Zeus or Atlas, the 10,000-year storm, the end of the world. I'm not going to do that. I don't hype the weather. I'm not here to get views. I'm not here to get advertising. We are what our name says. We are True Weather. We're your true weather to your event. To your event, to your event, to your event. All of you have different stages. All of you are moving in different locations. You need true, accurate information. We do that. We get the best technology out of academia and the government because we get around the red tape. We know everybody, and we're commercializing it, and we're delivering it to people. Hyper-local. All the big weather guys these days are big regional forecasts. What you get on your app is, 200, 300, 400-mile regional forecasts. We get down to the specific site you're at. So if you're here at the Baja Mar, we're down looking at the weather for this location in the terrain topography. All weather is local, and we're never going to overload you or confuse you. I'm not going to throw you every alert in the world. For example, somebody might be out in the Rockies, avalanche alert. How many of you guys are up there at the ski resort and need an avalanche alert for your stage? Maybe 1 or 2 of you, but generally, you don't want that garbage. You don't want the confusion. I'm not going to give that to you. So, I'll give you this example real quick. I built this Sunday night. These are various forecasts for Jacksonville, Florida for Monday. Not terrible, but this guy says thunderstorms 60%. Thunderstorms 80. These guys are just saying rain. Oh, by the way, this is your government. This is your tax dollars saying showers lightly but no thunderstorms. 40% Tuesday, 60% Tuesday. All this data is contradicting itself. And if you look at multiple sites, you're going to look at this and be like, what do I do? Why is none of this making sense? Why is there any consistency here? Again, it's models. They're running computer simulations, and they're just putting output out there. They're not looking at the terrain or the location that you might be at. And that's why these things happen. So, if you were to bring me on, I don't want to make this a sales pitch, so I'm going to go through this real quick. Like I said, I consult with you, figure out your needs, figure out your location. I deliver and design a product that fits your needs. You tell me, Jason, look, I got small margins. I can maybe only afford a couple $100s a day. Well, I can't be on site with you. Probably can't be available for a phone call. I can at least give you a dashboard with weather information focused on your site with the thresholds and triggers that matter to you. And all you need to do is have your phone or your laptop or your tablet in front of you at all times. Pull it out. There's the site. Here's my information. Oh, an alert just went out. Time to enact my action plan. So we design that product, we implement it, and then we can do this globally, folks. We've done battle-hardened, forecasts in Afghanistan. There's no weather data in Afghanistan. We know how to do this, okay? We've had people's lives on the line. The United States is actually easy. We have a wealth of information, but there's still big gaps. I'll use the example Steve was talking about, and Fish back there was talking about the buoy data. Buoy data is great. That stuff does come in about 1 minute every 2 minutes. Airports have a weather station, they call it ASOS. Depending on the airport, that can be updated every 30 minutes to 60 minutes. That's a big gap in time where it goes from sunny to a thunderstorm, or maybe it doesn't even catch that thunderstorm in that gap. You need more accurate information. And that's where, I don't know where Andy went. Please get yourself one of these. Because if you're far away from a weather station, you need to know what's going on at your site. You really do. It won't help you if it goes from 4 miles to 40 miles an hour, but it's better than nothing. This is a great place to start. It's a great product. Get something that you trust and get it out there. So we talked about it. You guys don't probably want to be Steve and learn all the hard stuff. You want simple, easy to understand weather information on your site, actionable, winds, lightning, hail. What is your concern? Everybody has a different concern. I worked Wakarusa 1 year. They put a stage down the slope area where all the water runs down the hill. They had 24 inches of rain in 30 hours. We nearly had a stage literally start sliding down the hill into the parking lot, into the camping area. They ended up moving that stage, luckily, about 3 hours into the rain event because we told them how much rain was coming. Tell me about your site. Know your site. Know your stage. Again, you brought me on. Easily accessible, whenever, wherever, however you want it. And you guys don't have a plan. I know a lot of the stage managers I've learned today, you guys do provide the wind loads, but every company's different. Maybe some of you are renting out stages. Maybe some of you have your own crews. Do you know how long it takes you to pull down those LEDs or those speakers and where to send people? Again, every site's different. Where you send people one place is going to be different than another place. Do you know how to do that? I can help you develop those plans or maybe refine them if you need to. Then the National Weather Service has a great program called Storm Ready. Nathan, I'll ask you real quick. Storm Ready takes this plan, I take that to them, I'll get it certified by them, I'll give you a nice plaque you're covered for 5 years. That says the government says you have a plan, it meets the standards, and we approve it. Nathan, would that be valuable to you as an insurance man if a customer came to you and said, hey, I need insurance, but I got this plan already, and it's certified by the experts?
Yep. Absolutely.
Show you how we can deliver. So our operations center is based in Albany, New York. We're about 10 people right now. My ops manager, Nathan Green, served for Air Force One, President Obama and Bush. Again, the no-fail missions, numerous dignitaries. Nathan will be the guy, if you were to bring this on, you would talk to. Guys forecasted all over the world, military precision. He'll be there 24/7. We're there 365. He trains all our people to make sure they understand you don't follow the model. You don't put out what the computer says. That's only the first step. And that's what most of the weather apps that you're using now is giving you. They're just giving you the first step. They're not getting down to your specific site, to your specific need, to your specific threshold. We're there to do that. The products, we're available 24/7, 365.
Quick show of hands. Who checks the weather before they go set up a stage? Anybody check the forecast? Wind forecast? Good. That's
really good.
That's really good. I know multiple staging companies that just go, and they deal with what's going to happen. I understand their point. You don't want to have to cancel a show, and weather forecasts can change, but having an idea of what to expect on the event site is so critical, and that's where you come in.
And like Steve said, it's not just about the build-in, it's the build-in, it's the event day, it's the build-out. It's the whole, from beginning to end. Again, proactive notifications. Some of you need 30 minutes to enact your plan, some of you need 15. Maybe if you had this century stage, you could bring it down in 5 minutes, I don't know. But, you tell us, I'm trying to help you here. But, You guys tell us what your plan is, how much time you need. We'll develop the product around that. So if you say, Jason, I need 30 minutes, I'm going to not tell you 25. I'm going to tell you 35 minutes out. Either I'm automated or I'm going to phone call you. Hey, got high winds developing, 35 miles out, 60-mile-an-hour winds, consistent storm cell. We call that a train of storms. You'll see that in the Midwest a lot. You guys need to consider taking action in your plan right now. Again, what impacts matter to you will help you with the plan. And this is a guarantee out of true weather. Every single product I ever issue to you will always be delivered by a fully trained, graduated meteorologist. You're not getting something from the computer, and you're not getting something from an intern. I won't bash anyone else, but a lot of the other weather companies are trying to do it on the cheap. They're trying to do it with the weather models in the computer. They're trying to take the human element out of it. It doesn't give the specific data to stage managers like you need, event organizers. Or they get a kid that just took his first meteorology class who's an intern who wants to learn meteorology, and here, go give this guy a festival for the Fire Festival in the Bahamas. I'm sorry.
Ouch.
I'm going to remember your story for years, but it wasn't because of weather. There was many other things.
Great story.
Just on fire, one last word is I truly didn't believe that there was intent to have fraud. I just believe it was naivety. And I think that we have a lot of clients that are naive to not just hard.
So that Photoshop was by accident?
So guys, I'm running behind. I'm sorry. I'm going to wrap up real quick. This is my dashboard. I wanted to provide you a live link that we're putting into the cloud today. This will be launching about April 1st. Site-specific forecast. If you guys have multiple stages out, we can provide you information for every stage you have out and about at all times. Web-based multi-access. Why I did it like this. Again, your custom alerts, available 24/7, 365. Mobile app again, provide the alert, provide the weather. And this is just an example of our forecast. Some person at South by Southwest for MTV told us, I want something that looks like the Weather Channel, Jason. Okay, I don't think that's very detailed, but there you go. But look, wind risk Monday. Very high risk with tornadoes possible Thursday, tornadoes and hail Friday. You're going to tell these guys 5 days out what was coming, so they could properly prepare. Paul McCartney, on the other hand, he wanted to get something down to the hour. It starts at 6 a.m. This is down in Brazil, back in October. Is there a lightning risk? Alert for that. Provide the hazard and the winds up to the thresholds. So bottom line, and I thank you guys for your time, let's make you guys more weather proactive instead of weather reactive. If you take nothing away from this, have a plan, understand the weather, or get somebody that can for you. And if you choose true weather, I'll watch the skies, you guys manage your stage.
Go ahead.
How much more specific can you be 24 hours out than everywhere else? It doesn't seem to be guessing what is going to happen.
So using the model Steve examined, can't talk. I told you about the HER model. That goes out roughly about 18 hours. I have access to an experimental version that goes out about 36 right now. So if you came to me 6 o'clock in the evening, you had a show the next day, Jason, you've been saying there's going to be a thunderstorm risk, what time, is it going to be close to me, is it to you not? I can reasonably give you an idea of that about 24, 30 hours out right now.
And yeah, because it would be location specific.
Correct.
Rather than, New York,
I'm not giving you a region and saying, oh, well, there's a chance of something happening in southern Florida. No, I'm going to say there's something going to happen in Broward County up by Fort Lauderdale.
Who's had a client check the weather on like a 15-day forecast when you're 2 weeks out from an event and tell you what the weather's going to be?
Have you looked at a 90-day forecast? Somebody does that. I'm just going to tell you, all of you could be better than that.
They are completely guessing on all of that stuff. Every outlet wants to say we have a 7-day forecast, a 10-day forecast, 12-day forecast, and so on. As you get that far out, the models just get less and less reliable. Just don't trust the consumer forecasts for anything other than generalities. That's all.
I want to bridge actually the last one and this one. Have you ever heard of event rain insurance? And does anybody actually go for that kind of?
I have to say, I've had clients actually hire me for that. Nathan, you might be able to speak to this better than me, though.
Yeah, you can buy
weather insurance where you can buy a time slot. I want coverage from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. You can narrow it, broaden it, it's expensive.
Not that I like to talk, but a short story. I had that one client that didn't want me to stop. We stopped the show. There was 6 inches of rain. I'm doing emergency action. I'm on an ATV on a wireless mic, telling people to go away from the generators when I'm shutting down generators. Client said, okay, festival's over, everybody go home. I'm like, look, give me 30 minutes. Your food is ruined, go home. We still have food. You want to take 30 minutes. I got the festival back on its feet, 8,000 people. And I documented the depth of the rain for the rain insurance that the client did not. They got full payment on the rain insurance, and they had a successful festival on something that they didn't want me to interfere with.
And to speak to that as an example, so I did Rocklahoma in 2015. We had a foot of rain come down in 3 hours. They had to go to their insurance guy to get them. Of course, he wanted the data. Well, luckily I was on site. I was collecting the data the whole time for them. But if you hire someone like me and God forbid something does happen, I've got that data for you. I can collect your anemometer data. We can make sure Nathan has all the information so you get your claim out.
Question in the back. Yep.
So, if I missed it, I apologize. How accurate are you 14 days out? The reason why is you can't buy your rain insurance within the last window of 14 days.
So 14 days out, I can't be completely accurate and say you're going to see 0.222 inches at 7 o'clock. What I can tell you is there a risk of rain or not? In other words, that's what we call a mid-range forecast. We know what's probably going to be moving through, what will be in the region. Is there going to be a high? Is there going to be low? Is there going to be a line of storms moving through? I can't get down super specific till about that 3 to 5 day window, though.
Okay, I have one more question. What type of insurance rate, like what percentage of insurance rate on your liability insurance, like having your service, do you want to get?
That's a question right there.
I was going to say that depends on your insurance provider.
I mean, like, are you just average, like, on your liability, like 10%, 30%?
Nathan?
For having your service?
None that I know of.
Oh, 0%.
They prefer it, but it's not.
So Nathan, that won't help them at all?
Probably not.
So it's not like a good driving discount?
Yeah.
You know, I think when you don't have a stage go down, that's a very helpful thing. And when you're selling your services against the next company and so on, this has a lot of value, and a good salesperson will spin this in a lot of different ways. But it's a very valuable thing, just to know that you're considering it, because I'll tell you from my personal experience with other staging companies, a lot of people don't consider it at all, and just by talking about these sorts of things, it puts your clients a little more at ease.
You might get a built-in rate if I submit your business to the stage company and say, hey, they're using this weather service, they're using this, they're using that, and then this other company, they're just gonna go online and check the weather. My first one's getting in quicker, and I'll probably get a better rate on it. Yeah, they're not going to tell me, you're not going to see it. Oh, you saved this much because you did this behind the scenes, but it's going to help.
Quickly break down again what you do. There's obviously the large scale, I fly you in to be at my event. Then you said there's smaller scale, I can just retrieve data from my phone.
Yep.
Is that just ongoing, or am I just paying you for next weekend?
So it depends. I went to a production company in New York 2 weeks ago, Production Glue, if anyone knows that name. I thought they were looking for just, they had this thing called Governor's Ball, Governor's Island, they do for 2 weeks around Memorial Day. I thought they wanted my services for that. I was going to offer them for 14, 17 days, $2,000 to $2,500, give or take. They were looking for a subscription model for the whole year, and so I might be offering them that roughly for about $20K. Again, it depends on what your need is. I'd love to have you for year-round. You guys are doing staging year-round, let's talk. But if you guys only have one weekend or maybe 2 months out of the year where, maybe you're working every Saturday and Sunday, we'll structure the product that way. I don't want you to pay for anything more than you need. So you tell me how long you need me.
It's kind of for events.
Correct. The more events you give me, if you're just doing a one-off, I'll probably get to charge you a little bit more because I gotta make sure someone's at base watching. you're a long-term client or you're willing to throw a couple at me and maybe looking at a longer term, we can certainly work out a sweetheart deal.
The idea of weather action plans, you know, I do really small events, and mostly pretty informal, so we'll get together with the 3 or 4 guys that I'm working with. Hey, if the wind comes up, do this, put some tarp on the speakers, we'll, you know, if it gets beyond a certain point, we'll drop the roof down and kind of an informal thing. And I really like the idea of formal action plans, reviewed with your clients and those sorts of things. So my question is, can you or can the local state network provide some samples of these things so that we as individuals, you know, his needs are going to be much different than mine, at least I can see some examples. Here's some basic elements I need to cover as I'm developing this plan.
For those of you who didn't hear that, he's asking that if he's asking for samples of a high wind action plan, and I think I'll get to that in a second. What's really interesting about a high wind action plan is they're going to be different for every single stage. But just every manufacturer, you've got your own thing that you've approved. I've done the same deal. I had to develop one for mine. I had the benefit of looking at the stage mobile wind action plan, Marshall Austin wind action plan.
That's exactly where I'm
You get a hold of them. But what's interesting is don't look at just one. Look at multiples if you can. You own different makes, models, stages. I think a lot of people here do. It's really interesting to look at the various ones because they're put together at different times. The Marshall Austin High Wind Action Plan is probably put together 20 years ago. An old century thing from back in the 80s, you know, is going to have a very different high wind action plan because not only did the understanding of the need to have something change over those years, but the equipment did, and you should compare that with what it is you have.
Yeah, Jeff Reeder yesterday made sort of nebulous that one, or at least for our product.
Yeah.
But you got, if some of you want that, I can certainly get you guys some samples from some of my former clients. I've done Hardfish, Lincoln Park. I can certainly share some of that information with you guys. Granted, those are bigger things, but it'll give you an idea how they operate. And I can certainly make, you know, good recommendations.
Yes, Mike.
Did we talk about safe zones at all when you're enacting a high wind action plan? Safe zone being, you know, if they're in the event of a collapse, an area that would be a safe distance from the actual stage unit.
Well, did everybody hear Mike's question? Did we talk about safe zones in the event you have to enact your high wind action plan? How, in the event of a collapse, how far away do you keep people? Anybody jump in here, but that is going to be structure specific and stage specific. A Marshall Austin is going to have a certain liability, and that's going to have a certain liability. And I would imagine that the safe zone would need to move accordingly. In my experience, it's spelled out in the manufacturer's high wind action plan how far away you need to have people in the various makes and models.
One down here.
Yeah, I want to respond to your question about the examples, not to cross-pollinate or anything else like that, but there's another organization called the Event Safety Alliance, and they do a summit called the Severe Weather Summit out in Norman, Oklahoma at the National Weather Center. It's a fantastic organization to get involved with. I mean, everybody, if you're running a mobile stage, if you're running outdoor events or indoor for whatever it's worth, the Event Safety Alliance is a fantastic organization. I'm not sponsored by them, I don't work for them, I'm just a fan of their organization. And they have 2 summits a year. One's in Pennsylvania, one's in Oklahoma. The one in Oklahoma is all this that you're talking about, and it will. I mean, if his presentation did inspire you to be a little safer and kind of get with the program with weather and safety, this conference absolutely will. And they go through all these different exercises and kind of teach you how to develop those plans. Yeah. And even if you don't go to the conferences, on their site they have different options and tutorials, if you will, to help guide you through that process. I highly recommend it to you and anybody else who's inspired by this topic.
And I'll follow up on that real quick. That's how I actually got into this industry. I actually helped Digby and those guys build their white book and the Safety Alliance book. True Weather is a member of that team. I do strongly recommend you guys have an interest. It's in Norman, Oklahoma this year. I believe it's Thursday and Friday, March 22nd, 23rd. I think registration's around 5 or 6 right now. Might want to consider going. You'll get to go through the National Weather Center there. They'll let you meet some of the experts to help you develop plans, show you some best practices. I'll be there, of course, showing off my wares. A few others will be. Be weather aware, be weather proactive. As much as I'd like your business, at the end of the day, I want to make sure people go home at night and don't lose the shirt off their back. That's what matters most.